Hello everyone, welcome to lesson 11 of our ABRSM grade 3 Rudiment of Music class. This is courtesy of the Deeper Life Bible Church, Greater Manchester region, the United Kingdom. And I'm your facilitator for today, Dr. Ernest Emediogu. In today's class, we'll be taking you through some very important topic about music phrases. And our learning objectives are as follows. We will identify simple musical phrases within a score or within a musical sheet or within a musical structure. And also we'll be able to differentiate between different types of simple musical phrases. So let's get into it right away. Now when we talk about musical phrase, what comes to your mind? I want you to cast your mind back to your grammar, your English grammar or whatever language grammar. We have what you call phrases, what you know as phrases in grammar, and this group of phrases makes up what? A sentence. So you have phrases that make up a sentence, and then you have sentences that then make a paragraph. So in that case, if you understand what phrases mean in grammar, all right, you can translate that to music. It's in principle, it's actually the same. So in music, you have music phrase, you have a musical sentence, and you also have musical paragraph. But we understand the difference between phrases, just a slight practical difference in terms of phrases between how it is applied in grammar and how it's applied in music. So if we go to the definition, like in grammar, a musical phrase is a short group of notes felt to form a unit. So if you think about your grammar, a phrase in English language is those group of words that kind of portray some meaning, that gives you a form of sense, even though it's not complete, but it gives you a kind of a feeling that you are heading somewhere. All right, so bring it back to music. It's a group of notes, not words now, not a group of words, but a group of notes that in your head you can feel that this is like I'm forming a unit here, like I'm forming like a cluster here. So that's what musical phrase or a music phrase is all about. And when we talk about felt, it's subjective. In a very simple case, it's very easy to know what a music phrase is. You just know that, okay, from year to this year kind of gives me a sense of what a music unit is. But in more complicated cases, people can differ. They could say, oh no, this is where a phrase should be. Another person will listen to the same song and say, no, I don't think a phrase should be there. I think the phrase, I'm feeling that the phrase should be on the other hand. So it could be subjective when you start going to the extreme, more complicated cases. But in the very simple case simple cases that we'll be looking at in this for this level, for this grade, I think everyone would kind of agree to what music phrase is in terms of the way to be demarcated. So let's get it right away. Now, how do you identify, you are given a music sheet, then how do you identify a music phrase or divide the music score or music structure into phrases? Just like if I give you a sentence and I say this is a sentence, divide this sentence into phrases. You'll be able to tell me, okay, this part gives me like an idea, this other part gives me another idea. I put the two together, it gives me a complete sentence. So what are some of the things you should look out for in a music structure that kind of helps you to identify where the music phrases should be? Now, most of the music we sing in simple form, they are normally set in verses, like poems, like our hymns. You write them in verses. If a music sheet is set in verses, it is easy for you to identify where the phrase is. The phrases often coincide with the end of the verse, either with the end of a line in the verse or with the end of a pair of lines. So if the end of a line doesn't form a phrase, then maybe by the time you combine two lines, you may end up having a phrase. Now let's go into a very simple example. We all know this song. It's like an hymn, a Christmas carol. White shepherds watched their flocks by night, all seated on the ground. An angel of the Lord came down and glory shone around. Now, if you read it this way, This is already, how it is written like in poem-like form. So even just looking at this, you can just think about this first line, because it's a verse, this line of the verse should form a phrase. This line of this verse should form a phrase. This line of this, the third line should form a phrase. The fourth line should form a phrase. And that's why they are all arranged in lines, when you look line by line, that makes up a verse. Sometimes it could be that this line, just this one line, may not form a phrase. That is, when you sing it, it may not give you that unit, melodic unit in your head. You may need to combine line 1 and line 2. That's why I talked about pairs of lines. You may need to combine line 1 and line 2 to be able to get a phrase, line 3 and line 4 to be able to get a phrase. But these are just, so it's either, if music are set in verses like this, it's either, a line gives you, the phrase coincides with a line or with a pair of lines. But of course, nobody's going to present music for you in words like this. They will be written or given to you in music sheets like this. If you know the songs already, then you are able to know, okay, this is the verse, this is how it is being. I can write out the lines of the song if you know them. But what if you don't know what the lines of the songs are? If you don't know what the lines of the songs are. Now look at this song. This is we're just transcribing what we have here into the music sheet here. Why shepherd watch their flocks by night? And now, if you look at what I've said, see, if you look at this note, why shepherd watch their flocks by night, you could see that I put what we call a phrasal line. Please note that this line here, this what you have here as this bended line, is known as a phrasal mark. So it's not like, don't confuse it to other terms and signs you've done like accent or maybe like slur or something. No, this is a phrasal mark. We don't use it regularly. You won't see it in music sheets, but we're only using it here to teach you, for examination purpose, for teaching purpose, that from year to year forms a musical unit. So that means if you sing the notes of, do, mi, re, do, fa, mi, it gives you a music sense. Then it's like you're starting the song from the second half again. So you've kind of, it's not a complete sentence. Remember, it's not a sentence. So you're not thinking of a song that is making a full sense in terms of the melody, but it's a part of the melody, a part of the sense. It's like forming a unit on your head, though not a complete sense, not a complete sentence, in musical sentence, but like a unit. And like I said, you could see that if we start here, we end night here, and then the second line we start from all, and then we end in ground, and then we take it on like that, and then you're able to demarcate the other ones are representing. So I can look at this now and see, okay, this is a phrase, this is another phrase, this is another phrase, this is another phrase. Okay, so the first thing I want you to, when you are given a music structure, think about it. Can I get the verses? Are they in verses? Can I get the verses out? Okay, if these are the verses, then it's possible that the first line, each of the lines of the verses makes up a phrase. If not each of the lines, then is it a pair of lines? But in a very simple case, like our poems and hymns, carols, it's normally each line. But of course, like I always had the caveat that there could be a situation where you will have pair of lines. Now, the second thing to look out for is, in most simple cases, phrases usually have the same length. And what do I mean? What I mean is, if your first phrase, for example, forms a 2-bar, the next phrase will also be a 2-bar. The next phrase, so you are not going to have, and I'm talking of a very simple cases that you'll be encountering in your grade. So it's not like you are having a phrase that is 3-bar and then another phrase in the same music that is 2-bar. So it's normally the same length. Either it's 2-bar, or if a phrase is 4-bar long, if it's 4-bar of the music that makes a phrase, then so there are two types you may have in terms of the phrasal length. You could have a 2-bar phrase. That is, if you now calculate all the bars together, you have an 8-bar melody. Or you have a 4-bar phrase, or you have 4-bar phrases. When you calculate all the bars together, you have a 16-bar melody. And I'm going to give an example of that. So this question I want to pose to us now, and we're going to answer it together. Let's go back to the music sheet we started with. Why shepherds watch their flocks by night? How many bar phrase is does this music have? Now already you have been given the, you can see here that you've been given the phrasal mark. You know, this is the phrase, this is another phrase, the second line of the verse, and the third line of the verse is another phrase here, and this is the fourth line of the verse. That makes the final phrase. So I can say there are 4 phrases here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 phrases, and that makes 4. Now, but how many bar makes up one of these phrases? Can you count how many bars? Some, you know, if you count 1, 2, 3, some people may say, oh, it's 3 bars. There are 3 bars because this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. Then this is 1 here, this is 2, this is 3. But no, not 3 bars. Rather, there are 2 bars because this is a complete bar. But if you look at this bar and it's complementing this 1 bar that is here. So if you add this 1 to this 3, you have 4 quavers, that 4 minims that make up a bar. So this is 2 bar phrase, a 2 bar phrase. And because this is a 2 bar phrase, all right, 2 bars making up 1 phrase, and then you have 4 phrases, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 bars in each of those phrases, they make up what? 8 bar melody. So this is an 8 bar melody. So you see, all the phrases have the same length. So if you think about this, this is 2 bars. You come here again, this is 1, 2 bar, this is 1, 2 bar. So each of these, so that's what this is talking about, that in very simple cases like you're going to encounter in your grade 3, phrases usually have the same length. In this case, we have a phrase that is made up of 2 bars. But understand that some phrases could be made up of 4 bars. Some melody may have their phrase being 4 bar melody. But in this case, it's just 2 bars. So watch out for 2 bars, or watch out for examples of 4 bar. You're going to see more of those examples when you do your homework in your assessment in the assessment segment. Now, the third thing you may want to look out for when you are phrasing is, I've mentioned that in passing, but the beginnings and the endings of phrases must complement or complete each other. You know, I said that in passing, and what that simply means is, for example, if we have a 4/2 music like we have here, if we have a 4/2 music, that means 4 minims in a bar. And we can see that the phrase begins with, what beat is this in the 4 minim beat? What beat is this? This is the 4th beat. The 4th beat, all right? It means that this phrase must end on the 3rd beat then, because this will now be 1, 2, 3, and then this will complement it as the 4th beat. So if this ends on the 3rd beat, then the next phrase will start again from the 4th beat. So you see, it's a repetitive cycle. Whatever you start with, like we said in the last slide, they must have the same length. So for them to have the same length, you start the same way and you end the same way. If you are starting on the 4th beat, it means the next phrase must also start on the 4th beat. So that means that you are starting on the 4th beat, then you have to end on the 3rd beat so that the next phrase starts on the 4th beat. The 4th beat you are missing here, that is not in this phrase, is being complemented by the 4th beat that you started with. It's just like an anacrosis. So that's about something you have to have in mind, that when you make sure that your phrases are the same in length, so not just the same in length. When the same in length means that they must start the same way, they must start on the same beat, and each of the phrase must end on the same beat. Whether it's 1st beat, 2nd beat, 3rd beat, 4th beat, or whatever beat it is, they must start on the same beat, they must end on the same. That all the phrases, if there are 4 phrases in a melody, those 4 phrases must start on the same beat, and those 4 phrases must end on the same beat. That's what I'm trying to emphasize. And then the 4th thing to look out for in phrasing is, watch out for repetitions. Repetitions just naturally tells you where to phrase. If a song is sometimes within a verse of a song, there could be repetition. Melodies could be repeated. So you know that where a melody is repeated already, that tells you it's even a sentence, not just a phrase. So you can even divide that repetition into further 2 to get phrases. And we're going to do an example about that. Also, naturally, when you look at a piece of music, let's say you don't even have an idea of what the music is, watch out for where you have the longer notes. The longer notes generally coincide with the end of phrases. So if those longer notes appear on regular intervals for simple forms of music, all right, you should know that that is where your phrases should be ending. All right, so those are some of the clues you need to kind of have in mind. So let's look at this very popular children rhyme: twinkle twinkle little star, how I wonder what you are, up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle twinkle little star, how I wonder what you are. All right, now you could write out this in verses and just tell me exactly, where the phrases are. But let's try and phrase it ourselves. Now, already, if you look at this longer note, where do I have my longer notes? You see, I have a longer note here, right? I have a longer note here. 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 And I have a longer note here. So already it tells me that these longer notes are appearing in the same as the second and third and fourth, because it's a 4/4 time, as the third and fourth beat, third and fourth beat, third and fourth beat. So it tells me that if this is my phrase, one phrase, then I can use this again as, remember, the same length, because they are the same length. I'm starting on the first beat. This is just a two bar phrase, all right? And then you could do it like that. Okay, so, and then you could do it like this. You see, this makes it easy because I just looked at where the, all right, good. Now, I've barred them. But if you sing this song, you will understand that twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you have. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. These two are repetitive. This melody is a repetition of this melody. So that already tells you that this melody, that is repeating this melody, they are phrases on their own. So when a melody is being repeated, each of those repetitions, they are already phrases. You should think about splitting them into phrases. And then also look out for long notes. That's a signal of where longer note. That's a signal of where. It doesn't always work that longer note. Some longer notes, if you go back to the example we did with the white shepherd watched their flocks by night, you see that the first phrase is just one beat, but the second phrase ends on a longer beat. So you need to kind of watch out for that. But these are clues that will help you, give you pointers of how to phrase and where to phrase. All right. So the last thing we want to talk about in our phrasing lookout is, if when you're given a sentence, for example, and then you are asked to divide the sentences into phrase, you want to read out the sentence and see how it sounds to you, to be able to know where should I put the comma. So think about where the comma should be. Where the comma, when you are writing a sentence, you put your full stop at the end of a sentence. But why do you use commas? You use commas for some part of sentence to show it's a phrase, that this part of the sentence is joining with this part of the sentence to make a complete sentence. So those commas, where you put those commas, are like the end of phrases. Okay, so you think about that. You read out the words so that you are able to kind of understand where the commas should lie. Also in music, you don't just, I know I've given you some examples that are familiar to you, songs that are familiar to you, but not all songs will be familiar to you. So you'll be giving music. It's very important you sing or play the music either aloud or internally, so that you can feel the melody in your head and know exactly where the pulse is, how the beat moves, and where forms a unit. Remember, we're not talking about a sentence, a unit. All right. So for example, let's assume I don't know the song Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I just see the music. I can read it out using tonic software. You understand? I can read it out. Also, let's assume that I don't see I don't know the words of why shepherds watch their flocks by night. I just saw the music. I can read it out. All right. You read out the music. Do mi mi re do fa fa mi. That gives me like a sense. Then you continue, so then okay, that one is already, but in between then can I have something? So you are able to think about, you read out the music, and that's where you should be able to know how to sight read. I expect everybody in grade 3 to be able to sight read. By now you know yourself first, you know how to read music, you know how to so that is how it sounds. So you need to understand what the music is in your head. Everybody now should be able to sight read at least. Put tonic surfers on those things. Read the music, but understand that it's not just reading the tonic surfer. You have to read them according to the time signature. It is the melody, the time signature, not just the pitch. You may know what the notes are, but if you are not getting the melody, the rhythm, the timing, you're singing it according to the time signature, you will not be able to get where the exact phrase is. So that's very important, that you sing the song, you play the song with the melody, the rhythm, so that you see how it feels in your head. And like I said, rhythm is the best guide to help you structure your music in the proper phrase your music properly. So with that, we come to the end of today's study. To wrap up, let's remember phrases are to music what they are in grammar. So whatever you think about phrase in grammar, whatever you've been taught, brilliant. It's the same thing. Just forming a melodic unit, musical unit in your mind, in your head, that is a music phrase. Group of notes put together that feels good, feels like a unit in your head. And like I've talked about, thinking about a unit that makes sense, not just anyhow unit, you just phrase something. No, it has to make sense, and it has to be consistent in terms of the duration. All the phrases must be the same duration, starting in the same beat, ending on the same beat throughout. And I've talked about certain clues, markers that can act as clues, where you see longer notes that are persistent or consistent, then that should give you a clue. Where you see repetition of melody, that should give you a clue that there is a phrase inherent there. And lastly, and most importantly, melody is the best guide. You need to know how to sight read. You need to know how to read the music, not just read the music melodically as well as rhythmically. All right, so that is very important according to the time signature, to be able to pinpoint where the phrase is. Our homework, please, I want to encourage you, do this exercise, because you will see lots of examples of music structure that you don't even know, and you're expected to read the music and identify where the phrases are. Pages 34 and 35, pages 34 and 35, pages 34 and 35 are things that you will be able to see in the music workbook. All right. So thank you very much. So I will be, if there's any question, please feel free to drop it in the chat. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Bye.